Cyberpunk Uncensored.
Hey, what's up everybody? This video is all about night markets. I'm really excited about this video because I absolutely love night markets. I always loved the idea of them in 2020, but in Red, I am obsessed. I love how, they define it, they lay out why, and just so much detail about them. I'm sure you've got the Cyberpunk Red book, and you see it for yourself. It just explains everything, and then they give you these charts so you can create your own night markets and all that. It's awesome. So that's what I wanted to go over. I want to explain how to use those charts, how a night market works, and that's what this video is about. So let's just get into it. First, before we get into the night market itself, let's explain the fact that in the time of Red, everyone is just heavily reliant on dependent on nomads. They pretty much, they're running all the transportation of goods and items and things. So they're running land, sea, air. They're the ones that are running convoys and things to other cities, and just they're all about transport, and they're the ones that are running supply chains. So things are hard to come by. You have to source things. So the first thing that you got to know is, like, if you don't know a fixer, or you're not invited to one of their night markets, you can pretty much only find and purchase things up to a premium level. And I explained in the other crash course video about this when I discuss how to make money. But now let me get into detail about that. So every item, every weapon, everything listed in Cyberpunk Red not only has a price, but a market price, category. Whether it's cheap, you can see right here how the chart is, cheap, everyday, costly, premium, expensive, very expensive, luxury, super luxury. So depending on if you know a fixer to hook you up and source things for you, or tell you where you can get them, or invite you to a night market, is going to determine, what kind of things you have access to. And even that is just a guideline, GM discretion. This is Red. Sometimes you got to source the lower end items too, if it's just that time of the month or year or whatever might have just happened. So it's things are, nothing is set in stone or reliable all the time. So just keep that in mind. The time of Red is kind of crazy, and I love it. So, yeah, let's back up a little bit. So anything below that premium category, you can typically find at like your local bodega, they call it. And in Cyberpunk Red, they have a chart. I didn't include it in this video. This one is all about night markets, but they do have a chart about bodegas, and they talk about like the owner and cashier, typical encounters there, what items they might be stocked with, and you roll on that chart and determine the local bodega at that time and kind of how that works. Aside from that, you might have access to a nearby Oasis station, which is owned by Continental Brands, which used to be a subsidiary of Petrochem back in 2020, but after the Fourth Corporate War, they kind of broke off and becoming their own thing. They've actually been taking over all the Chew for You stations, which used to be Petrochem run. Think of those as like big gas stations or racetracks, they call them. I don't know what other brands they are, but just think of them like that, like kind of a gas station sort of spot that also has like a mini convenience store to it. And just like bodegas, you can find everything. It's just more of a chain. But so aside from the local bodega, you might be able to go to the nearby Oasis station. So those are your options. Other than that, maybe like a local weapons or equipment shop or local tech might have access to certain things. That's how you pull that off. But when it comes to anything above premium and all the cool stuff that you want to get, you definitely need to know a high level fixer, or you need to get to one of their night markets. And let's get into how you basically construct one of those night markets. If you're a GM, this is how you do it. First, you roll 1d6 twice, and that'll tell you what categories of items your night market is stocked with. And if you roll that 1d6 twice and it lands on the same number, just roll it again, because you want two different numbers here. And it could be anything from food and drugs, personal electronics, weapons and armor, cyberware, clothing and fashion wear, and survival gear. And then each one of those kind of has a description that explains. One thing I do want to mention I thought was pretty cool was cyberware, they have everything, even stuff that has to be installed. Now, you don't get the elaborate, installed cybernetics, like a cyber eye or neural processor installed at the night market, but that fixer will definitely send you to his local recommended Ripper doc he works with, and you'll get it installed for free if you buy that item from him at that night market. I thought that was pretty interesting that they elaborated on that. That's awesome. And then clothing and fashion wear, all fashion wear cybernetics, those can be installed at the night market because that's very, it's more casual. That's like fashion wear is, those cybernetics are stuff you can get at the mall. You know what I mean? So that you can get installed at the night market. So first thing you want to do to construct this, let me back it up and just reiterate so you don't lose, track of how you do it. You roll 1d6 twice. Each one of those numbers you look at, make sure they're not the same. If they are, re-roll it. But you want two separate numbers to determine the two different types of categories that the night market has. So just for this, let's just say you rolled a 5 and a 6. You got clothing and fashion wear, or a 4 and 5, we'll say. You have cyberware and clothing and fashion wear. So once you roll those, then you go to the next chart, which you'll see goes all the way up to 100. And it's broken off 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, on and on. It has all the different of the 6 categories that you rolled for previously. Your 2 are cyberware, clothing and fashion wear, like I said just a minute ago. So once you know your 2 categories that you rolled for, you go to this chart, and then you roll a 1d10 for each of those categories. You take that number for each of the categories that you rolled, and you multiply it by 1d100. You roll 1d100 that many times. And that'll tell you what items are in that night market. So let me just give you an example, because it might have been a little confusing. I did say multiply, and I don't want to confuse you. So first, you roll your 1d6 twice. That tells you the 2 different categories you have at the night market. Then you roll 1d10 for each of those categories. Then that's how many times you roll 1d100 to see how, what items in those categories are stocked at that night market. So for instance, if you have cyberware, like we said, you would roll 1d10. Let's say it came up 4. You would roll 1d100 4 times and look at those categories. Let's say you roll 1d100 and it comes out 20, somewhere between 26 and 30. You would look at that, go over to cyberware, and you would say, oh, okay, cool. External cyberware and whatever, and it tells you what it would be. Then you roll it again. Let's say it comes between 56 and 60, and you'd go over to cyberware down in that category, and it says, like cyber audio or this much, within this cost range. So each one, it'll tell you exactly what type of item or items are in stock within that category. So just to reiterate one last time, you go to that first chart, you roll 1d6 twice, make sure they're different numbers. That'll tell you the 2 different categories. Then for each of those categories, you roll 1d10. And then that'll tell you how many times for each of those categories you roll 1d100 to look at the next chart and determine what items are stocked at that night market. And if you don't have a 1d100, just use your percentage die and your d10, or you can always try to just roll 1d10 twice and just assign each number slot for each d10 and just get it that way. But it's that simple. You just work your charts. It explains it right there in the Cyberpunk Red Book, and that's how you kind of stock up and make each one of your night markets unique and interesting, and all the details right there. Now again, GM discretion. You can always add more, take away some, whatever, but these charts are there and they work great. They're awesome. And don't forget, there is also something called the midnight market, and that's just a step up from the night market. So a night market, that's going to be your local fixer or crime dude, whoever's hooking up that night market, and that's great. A midnight market is more like crime boss level. It's like big time. You're going to see the top level fixers and crime boss family people, and just that's big time. So I think in Cyberpunk Red, they describe it like this. It says, that velvet painting of cats playing poker. Yeah, that's at the night market. But that Mona Lisa you want to get, that's at the midnight market. I think that's a great way to put it. I think that really explains it, you know? You're going to get your premium above items, your premium and above items at your night market, and that's great. But at the midnight market, you're going to get your exotics. And I think in that they even say roll 1d10 plus 5, and that's how many unique exotic items are there, really hard to find items or whatever. I don't know exactly how they word it. You'll see it when you check out the book. But yeah, that's a midnight market, and those are more rare. Night market, little more often. They happen in the city all the time. And remember, they're usually on mobile platforms, whether the back of a truck or shipping cargo container or something like that. They're usually there just for the night or a few hours, and then it's gone. It's shipped out. And they're always based on, what good stuff the fixer has been able to source or find, or what shipment was just discovered by some scavengers or nomads and whatever hookup they got. So, they come and go. They're random. But always remember they're typically on some type of transport, like back of a truck bed or shipping container, things like that, because they want to be able to get in and get out fast because, they're night markets. They don't want to get busted by the Night City Police Department, or raided by some of the local booster gangs when they find out, oh, there's a night market down the street, and then, they're starting to plan to go raiders. So anyways, getting too much into like the lore behind night markets, check out the Cyberpunk Red book. Like I said, there's like pages and pages about night markets. They elaborated on it. I love it. I've always been a fan of night markets. I love what they did with it in Cyberpunk Red. This is how the charts work and how you do it. Hopefully it was helpful. If it was, please like the video, give it a share, subscribe to the channel, and check out the other Crash Course videos I have. Thanks so much. Take care.